Assalamu alaikum. Today's guest takes us through a deeply personal journey of faith, identity, and belonging. Originally Latina, her path to Islam began with one simple question and the courage to keep asking one question after another. Her journey wasn't without its challenges. She faced distance from some loved ones, but she also found a new kind of community rooted in support and a sense of belonging. This episode with Veronica is a reminder that sometimes, in searching for truth, we don't just find answers, we find ourselves. Thank you, Noha. Over to you now for this beautiful episode with Veronica.
Thank you, Hidayah. Hello, Veronica. How are you?
I'm good, ma'am. How are you?
Good. Thank you for being with us in Stories in a Cup today. So, Veronica, I'm curious. Tell me a little bit about how you were raised and what faith looked like in your home growing up.
I was raised traditional Catholic. I have a upbringing Mexican, more Mexican Spanish, and so I became non-denominational Christian when I was about 18, 19 years old, and then I got deeper into Christianity after my mother passed when I was 20, and
Yeah.
I was a Christian for long time until October of 2024 is when I um, took my shahada.
Yeah, mashallah, mashallah. And before I get to how how you got there, what did spirituality mean to you before embracing Islam?
I've always been aware of God, Allah. I've always had a relationship with Him, um, more so than I did with Jesus. But like I read the Bible, attended church. I was very active in the church. I sang in the choir. I did a lot of volunteer stuff. A lot of giftings
Yeah,
were part of my journey. So yeah, it was big. It's huge.
it sounds like you had a really big community growing up in church.
Yes, yes, big.
Um,
Right.
so it sounds like you always question things a little deeply, or did that come later?
Always. No,
Always.
I've always questioned everything. Um, I'm uh,
Yeah.
I'm the black sheep of the family. So if something didn't settle right with me, I would question it or I would rebel. So I'm the one that made the waves in my family. To be honest, I still do.
Yeah,
Um,
mashallah, that's amazing.
I still make the waves. Yeah.
So tell me, you said you took your Shahada October 2024, but I bet there was time before that when you first encountered Islam.
There was. There
Yeah.
was. I have a dear friend of mine by the name of Miriam, and met her in middle school. And her father, Mr. Rabia, he is a sheikh in Colorado, and I didn't know that at the time. Um, and to be honest with you, and I've always been strong-minded, straightforward type person all my life. And when me and Miriam became friends, that's when I first learned about Islam. And she didn't wear the hijab because back then the hijab wasn't worn very often.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
but she would tell me about the Quran and she talked to me about Ramadan and those types of things. So I learned a little bit at that time. And then I moved back to Texas. I didn't revisit it, but I've always been aware, and if I had anybody who I'd run into that was Muslim, I was always respectful, especially if they were fasting or, whatever rules and accommodations that I knew at that time, I was very respectful. Um,
Was that your initial perception of being Muslim? Um,
no, Miriam's upbringing was very challenging. And There was a lot of things that she told me about culture when it came to her family versus Islam itself, the faith.
Yeah.
And I I guess I taught her how to rebel a little bit.
I love that. All of us
And
need a friend that teaches us to
yeah,
rebel.
yeah. So like she didn't get away from Islam. She still practices some, but she's not as heavy into the faith like her father is. And I learned a lot from her and her dad and her family. So I'm thankful for that. Most definitely.
So, was there like a specific moment that shifted something inside you? I mean, it sounded like you're a very devoted Catholic at that time. Oh.
I was. The thing that shifted was I separated from my husband um almost 3 years now. And I ended up meeting a gentleman and I started talking to him. And in the beginning, I didn't know that he was Muslim, but I knew that there was something different about him because of the way he ate, his mannerisms, certain things that he did. But I never really took it as him being Muslim. And I went out with him one day because he has a heart for the homeless. And so I went out with him and he met with several homeless people. And at that time, like when he was talking to them, I realized how much he actually saw them and
Yeah.
saw them as people and encountered them as humans. And I was very in awe of it. And so I had asked him essentially, I was like, what is that? Like, what is that thing that you have? Because I don't have that, you know? And he was like, "That's Islam." And I looked at him and I was like, "What?" He's like, "That's Islam." He's like, "I'm Muslim."
Wow.
And I was like, "Oh, it all makes sense now." Like everything that he did, everything how he was, it just as soon as he said it, it just made so much sense. And that was the spring of 2024. And so then I started asking questions to him. And at some point in time, he talked about getting married. And I was like, well, I don't know if I'll become Muslim because, I'm a Christian. And so then he was like, well, he's like, think about it because it would be, nice if you were Muslim. And I was like, well, but then I'm not going to wear the hijab because, like, I can't do that. And he was like, well, you don't have to. And he was like, but if you want to, you can. And so then I just started digging more, doing more research, just trying to find out more answers for myself so I could have a better sense of direction. And there was a day when he and I got into a huge disagreement, and I was, battling the separation, dealing with the stuff that was going on with my family. So I was dealing with a whole lot, and I broke down. And I remember sitting in my car, and I was like, I don't even know who to pray to anymore because I had stopped going to church. I had stopped reading the Bible. I had stopped doing so many things as a Christian that I didn't even know who to pray anymore. And so I sat in my car and I was crying and I was crying. Before you knew it, I was like, okay, Allah, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
from that day forward, it was like, okay, I guess this is the way it's gonna go down from here on forward. And I just started researching um, the Muslim communities in the area because I was gonna move. And I wanted to move from where I lived at the time, which was Fort Worth. I wanted to move back to the east side, eventually moved.
Yeah. Mashallah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, went from
So,
there.
so in your like questions that you are seeking answers for, what questions were the hardest for you?
Um, my the struggle, I would say most of the struggle was my relationship with Allah, with God. I had suffered with that for a long time. I grew up in a not so friendly environment. I've dealt with abuse,
Yeah. Sorry to hear
assault,
that. Yeah.
a
Very
lot of
sorry to hear that.
depression.
Yeah.
My mom passed when I was 20. I had to start my life. again after she died, and my whole world with God just wasn't secure. It was kind of rocky. Although I would pray and I would go to church, I still felt like I wasn't whole. And so I truly wanted a better relationship with God. And that's what I was seeking.
You felt like
And
something. You felt like something was missing. It sounds like it.
yeah, I felt like a lot was missing. Not just my relationship with Allah, but I felt like I wasn't whole because my flesh was struggling, my soul was struggling, and they were fighting each other. And I needed to find my center in order for me to be able to have a successful relationship with him. You know, that was my biggest struggle. Everything else was like, okay, cool. Like I've always had faith that he would always take care of me. Always had faith that whatever was in my path was because of him. You know, whatever was going to go down, it was going to happen because he foresaw. I've always had that faith, but I didn't have that secure relationship with him.
That's very profound. And do you remember, Veronica, the moment you knew in your heart?
The first time I made salah by myself.
Wow.
When yeah.
And how did you learn on your own to pray, or how did you?
Yeah, I did it in half English, half Arabic.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I worked my way through it, and but the very first time I made salah by myself at home in a quiet space where I knew that I could just let go was when I had that initial cry, that cleansing cry that hits you when you
Yeah.
finally feel like you're at home.
Oh, I miss that cry.
That's
we
yeah.
we feel
So
it a lot in
that's
Ramadan.
when it happened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So that's when it happened. And then it was a few months after that um that I took my shahada.
And what did saying the Shahada feel like?
To be honest with you, I felt like I was safe again. I felt like I found a place where I can truly be as I am, as I was created. The Bible says there's a verse in the Bible that talks about come as you are, right? And I always felt like when I went to church, I truly couldn't come as I was because I was broken. I was damaged. I was damaged goods. And going to church never gave me the sense of healing, never gave me the sense of like coming here is going to make you whole. And when I took my Shahada, I was like, I'm finally there. Like, okay, I'm getting emotional now. I'm finally
It's a
there.
good,
Like,
yeah, I
I
think.
finally, I finally found the missing piece,
So it sounds like there
and I
was
felt whole
fear.
again.
Was there like fear mixed with peace?
Not fear. It was like a divine nurture. You find it, a finally child. You came home. Oh,
You felt like your soul reconnected.
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah.
SubhanAllah.
And I
Yeah.
kid you not, my life changed within a month. Within a month, my life changed.
Veronica, the way you describe it, just everything gave me goosebumps. I'm so happy you went through that journey. And how did your family react when you
That was um,
yeah.
mm, I definitely gained a new family because my family, I think a lot of it is ignorance and fear. When I told my dad, the man who raised me, that I became Muslim, he his initial he said to me, "I hope that you're the one that's making this decision and it's not being made for you. And my response was, you've known me how long? And how often do I listen to other people?
The black sheep in the
Um,
family.
yeah, I'm like, how often do other people make decisions for me? And I'm like, you're talking to me. And he was like, I know. He's like, but I said, but what? He's like, I just don't want you to be caught up with a man who's gonna tell you that you need to do this. I'm like, this has nothing to do with a man in the sense of me marrying. Now, did a man reintroduce me to Islam? Absolutely. And I'll give him the credit for that because that's what he did. And I believe that was his purpose in my life, was to reintroduce me to Islam. And I'm thankful for that. But it wasn't because of him that I became Muslim. He was just the vessel that was used for me to return, for me to come home. And so that's my dad in Colorado. And then my family in Texas, we don't talk like we used to. Um, it's very rare that we talk now. I talk more now to my sisters at the Majid or friends at my job who embrace Islam and have learned a lot about Islam because of me being Muslim and being able to pray at work and being able to talk freely about Islam. I talk to them and they've become my family. So I lost a lot of blood family, but I gained so many brothers and sisters in the faith that it doesn't hurt as much as it used to.
Yeah, so it sounds like you learned a little bit about boundaries and love, what that means during that time as well.
Yes, ma'am.
So, what was the hardest adjustment in your first year?
Um, the uh dress code, the modest dressing, the learning how to wear the hijab. I didn't start off wearing the hijab. It took me a while, and then I embraced it, and then now I'm back to part-time, and then I go back to full-time. So I go back and forth with the hijab. I love it though. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I love what it represents. I love how I feel when I wear the hijab. I I just, I do enjoy it, but sometimes I feel like I want my hair to flow. No, I want my hair out. So then I'm like, okay, so then I modify things. Like, I'm starting to learn a little bit more about, what not to show, not to wear, tight fit, or, like, I'm still learning that part, but overall, it's good. It is a good thing. My my children are not Muslim,
Mhm.
and they've adjusted with me, and they've seen the change. Definitely my youngest. My oldest is still kind of like, I don't know about you, mama. But my youngest is like, okay, this is cool. And so they've learned also. Like, my youngest goes to the masjid with me. And so she'd be like, Mama, we're gonna go to Al Ansar today. And I'll be like, yeah. She's like, all right, I'll cover my hair. I'll wear, my hoodie, you know. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, cool. Like, just be respectful. I was like, just be respectful. And my oldest is like, I'm just gonna wear whatever I want. And I'm like, well, then you can't go because I need you to be respectful. You know, um, the adjustment in eating pork. Like, we used to eat a lot of pork. Now I don't eat pork. I definitely
Yeah.
don't miss it. And so the adjustment for that. But everything else has been good though. Like, when my team at work, I have to give them props because we order out and stuff, and they're like, "Okay, remember, Veronica didn't eat pork," you know, and then
I
they
love
give
that.
me a hard time about it. They're like, and then some of them are like,
Are you sure you don't want some bacon with that?
"Yeah," they're like, "I'm gonna put some bacon in there." And I'm like, "Better be some turkey bacon." Like, I don't be fighting with you. And so then, they joke around with me, but they're very sincere.
Yeah.
When we do eat, like they're like, okay, yeah, like make sure we don't get no pork. Make sure, you know, they've learned the words halal. They've learned the words, like, are we gonna eat halal today, Veronica? I'll be like, well, let's find a halal restaurant. So like I give them, and then they remind me to pray sometimes. I get so busy and they're like, Veronica, you haven't prayed. And they're like, oh dang. So then, I have to give them the props because then they're like, go pray. So then they cover for me when I go pray. If I decide to have my hair out, because it's the office full of women. So if I have my hair out, and if there's a guy that they hear in the hallway, they're like, Veronica, there's a man coming, cover up. And I'm I'm
Pastor.
covering my head. Yeah. So they're like, and they're just very, very respectful. And if there is a guy that comes in, like they make sure they give me space between me and whoever I'm talking to. So they've learned like, okay, nobody can touch her. Like, don't touch Veronica, especially if you're a guy. Don't touch her. So they've learned all this stuff, and we enjoy it. Like we enjoy the differences, and then they ask more questions. And then they're like, okay, well, tell me about this, or I want to know more about this. And so then it becomes an educational day because they ask questions. And I think that's been the best part is of my journey, is being able to make dawah in a way that was totally unexpected, you
Yeah.
know, and having them embrace Islam and learn about Islam and be respectful about Islam. And we'll have our debates, we'll have our debates. And my boss, whenever we have a bad day, she'd be like, Veronica, I need to go in that room and talk to Allah because I don't know what's going on today. It's my time to go pray. Just like, let me add to the list. And, you know, things like that, which has been so amazing. And I'm so thankful because not everybody has that in their workplace, you know. So like and this is part of my journey. When I tell you, when my life changed after taking the Shahada and I was offered this position, that was the first, one of the questions that they asked me was, what is it that we need to do for you? And I told them, I said, I'm Muslim. I have to be able to have a space where I can go pray. And they're like, all right, we'll make it happen. I was like, okay, cool. Then we can make anything happen. If you make that happen, I can make anything happen. And yeah, it's been a beautiful journey since then.
It sounds amazing, mashallah. And you mentioned so that we talked about the hardest adjustment in terms of getting used to what to wear and not, giving up pork, etc. What was surprisingly easy then that you didn't expect to be very easy?
Honestly, when people, because I'm Latin, um, my name is not. I don't have a Muslim name. Um, so just having the conversation. When they ask me, where are you from? And I'm like, I'm from Texas. Um, they're like, where were you born? I'm like, in Texas. And then they're like, but you're Muslim. I'm like, yeah, like, yeah, I am. Like, who knew, right? So then, then that opens up the conversation. Um, she's Mexican, and she's like, how did that happen? And then we have the conversation. We talk about it, and we go from there. So making dawah has been the easiest thing because I don't shy away from it. I don't hide it,
Yeah, that's amazing.
and I make it known because um it's I'm proud of it. It's just my new way of life, and uh, I think it changes a lot of things in people. And when you when people see the change in you, and you yourself are the witness stories, then it says a lot.
Yeah, it's amazing. And what about the Muslim community? Did you feel embraced by them?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I think I'm a little spoiled with the masjid that I go to because um, it's a small masjid in Richardson. It's Al Ansar Society, and I initially started going there because they have a Latin community, a Spanish speaking community. And that's how I started my journey with them. And I've been with them ever since. And I have never felt judged there, never felt uncomfortable asking questions. I've never been told or felt like I wasn't welcome.
That's alhamdulillah, that's great. So how did in your journey in becoming Muslim, is there anything that you felt that you really had to unlearn?
Learn?
Yes.
Yeah, I have a really bad potty mouth. Um, and patience. Patience is a struggle for me. I'm very matter of fact, very bold, very straightforward, and I've had to adjust myself a lot and remember, like, reel yourself in. Like, don't approach people like that. Remember who you're talking to. Remember who you represent. Remember who you are now. That's been probably the hardest adjustment on a personal level. It has been that.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing, and that's part of the journey. So for the woman listening, if someone is quietly curious about Islam but afraid, what would you tell her?
You gotta love yourself. And in order to truly love yourself, you have to embrace the new you, the person that you're going to become, because we all evolve and we all grow. And in doing that, we set an example for the next person, right? The next woman. And love who you are so you can love everybody else. Embracing Islam is a journey, but it's one of the best journeys that anybody can make because it becomes about you and uh, and in that you become a better person.
I love that, Veronica. So, Veronica, what would you say to someone scared of losing their family?
You're gonna gain millions of brothers and sisters. So
Yeah.
be prepared because you might lose 5, 10 family members, but you're gonna gain millions. And the love that you receive from this community is going to be nothing compared to the love that you receive from your family. It's not the same, because we we as reverts, not being born into Islam, we chose this path. So when you choose this path, we know already up front that we're going to be losing things. We might be losing people. We might be shedding old ways. We're going to be losing things, but we're going to be gaining so much in return. We get to gain more brothers and sisters. We get to gain aunties and uncles. We get to gain a wali. We get to, we gain so much in the community. And when you need something, they come together. They don't question you. They don't question you. Like, I have been in a need for a lot of things. And when I called on my brothers and sisters at the masjid, like, they did everything they could to help me. They came together and they're like, all right, let's pull together. So yes, you might lose so few because of the ignorance, because of the fear, or just prejudice, whatever it might be. But you're gonna gain so much.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I have one last question for you, Veronica. And thank you for answering all my questions so far. If you could go back and speak to your pre-Islam self, what would you say?
I think I would have embraced Islam if I was braver when I was younger about faith. Like if I had that strength that I had now back then, I would have embraced Islam earlier. I would have. Um, because I knew back then the goodness of it, but because I was raised Catholic and raised a certain way, I had fear of not being seen as myself. And as I say that out loud, as I say that out loud, I realize now that even now, even within the last year, I had to shed some of that fear to become myself, to become an evolved Veronica, a better version of Veronica. I had to let go of a lot of old stuff in order for me to become a new person. And sometimes when we struggle with abuse or addiction or certain things in our lifetime, um, we've already lost the sense of who we are. And when something like Islam comes along, we're going to lose another part of ourselves again. So I was going to lose another part of me, another layer. And I would have taken that chance sooner if I was braver to be able to shed that part of me.
I think you've nailed what holds back people from positive change, even positive change. It's the fear of the unknown.
We're a society that needs to see and feel so we can know and understand. Like we have to see it and feel it to know that it's real, you know. And having a relationship with God, it's only felt. Having a relationship with Allah, it's only felt. You see it, but sometimes you see it later after certain things have happened. You see the shift and you're like, oh my God, like Allah did that. But that
Yeah.
happened a year ago. And I'm just now seeing it because it's just now been revealed to me, right? So the unknown tends to hold us back because there is a fear of it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Veronica, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today in Stories in a Cup. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I truly hope that I could see you again in the near future.
Yes, ma'am. Anytime.
So
Cheers.
much. Thank you so much. Have a
You're
lovely day.
welcome.